Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome once again, as always, to another helping of Mr H's Hot Pot. Join me today, roughly about 9:30 in the morning, here in sunny Florida. I'm back in my normal spot for my vlogs, or vlogs as I like to call them, here on this particular vacation, which is that little children's play park. There hasn't been many children playing on this during my stay here. Ironically, just as I got here this morning, there was a kiddie who'd had a little bit of a play on here, and I just waited until him and his mum had moved off here before getting into today's vlog. I've already done the Cresta run. I did that whilst that kid was having a little play on this area. And I'm on Fanta today, Hot Potters. And I'm quite partial to Fanta during this vacation. Simply because it tastes like it used to back in the UK before they started fiddling about with all the recipes on soda drinks. What they did back in the UK is, remember, they tried to cut down on our sugar intake to try and combat obesity. So they've altered all the recipes and nothing tastes good anymore, does it? But over here in America, they've not got round to doing it yet, let's put it that way. So I'm enjoying Fanta as it used to taste. And today, Hot Potters, we're in double figures, aren't we, for the old vlogs, the vlogs. I'll have to start thinking about packing up at some point, but not today. Not today. And once again, thoroughly enjoying this vacation. Had a fantastic time yesterday. We went to one of the parks, Hollywood Studios, and little Toby James has enjoyed all of the rides in there. Now, there's an area in there that's themed like Star Wars, and I must admit, Hot Potters, I'm not particularly a Star Wars fan, if I'm being honest. You either liked it or you didn't, and I'm one of those. I can take it or leave it. And I'll be honest, despite it being heavily promoted and repeated back in the UK down the years, since 1977 when the first film came out, I've never really watched them. I've never watched one all the way through. I'm ashamed to say, but went into the Star Wars land, and we can pick it up. And there's two rides in there, Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run. And both of those, we went on them and Toby thoroughly enjoyed it. On Smuggler's Run, you're either a pilot, a gunner, or I think it's an engineer. Mrs H and little Toby James were the pilot, I was the gunner. And the theming and the whole experience is so immersive, you can't help but get into it. The same with Rise of the Resistance. Supposedly you're on a ship and you get stopped and then Darkseid drag you off and then you get rescued, and it's just fantastic. If you ever come over here, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, go on those rides because it's definitely worth it. And in the morning, before we went to Hollywood Studios, we went out for our breakfast. We got off property and went to one of the little eateries that we used to go to. One of them was still left at Ponderosa. Some of you maybe remember that I did a vlog regarding this particular Ponderosa and a particular server back in 2019. He was very rude, and it's the only time, Hot Potters, I ever have had to leave a cent as a tip. For those of you who don't understand the setup, over in America, when you're tipping, you're supposed to tip at least 15% of your bill. Now, if you found that this server's not been particularly good, the automatic thing to do, as you would do back in the UK, is just walk out and not leave anything. Unfortunately, servers and people who work in customer services over here, they know that over in Europe we don't really tip. It's not a custom of ours. So if you don't leave them a tip, they don't think I've been bad or my service has been poor. They just put it down to European, as they put it. They don't even class you as British, it's just the Europeans. So what you do, you leave a cent coin, which is the lowest you can leave, and that shows them that you know that tipping is expected, but that's what you think the service was worth. You know, if you could leave less, you would, so to speak. So anyway, went back to this Ponderosa. Went back to it, number one, because it's a name, it's a familiar name that we know. The menu is quite good. And secondly, it spits you out into a gift shop. If you stay on Disney property, you will not experience the gift shops that are on International Drive and on US 192 up Kissimmee way. And they're little weird and wonderful shops, and it's worth going to them. They're full of tat, and they're full of all the sort of same stuff. But the theming on the outside of these gift shops is amazing. There's one like a wizard, which holds its hands out. You've then got one that's like a mermaid, and you've got all them kind of things, and it's just worth going, taking a look at these. The artists who paint these places up are amazing. They really are. They put Banksy to shame back in the UK. Anyway, I went into the gift shop to pick up some gifts for the folks back home. Mike, if you're watching this, got a little something for you. I'm sure you'll appreciate. And when I'd chosen my items and I went to pay for them, I did what I do back in the UK, and I'm sure many of you do. I pulled out coins of the realm, or in this case, dollar bills. Pulled out a $20 bill because I didn't want to get caught out having the exact amount and then them saying it's an higher amount because plus tax. And the trouble with the plus tax business is you've got to quickly work it out in your head. So I thought, I'll give them more than enough, and that way I'm on the right side. So I hands him this $20 bill over, and he looked at me as though, you know, I'd handed him just a useless piece of paper. He's looking at it and he's looking at me, and then he slowly goes into the cash register, and I thought, what's going on here? You know, there's something wrong with this guy. And what it was, Hot Potters, simply because they're that used to people just coming up with a card and going boop, he wasn't used to people handing him actual money, physical money, and he couldn't work out what the tax was himself. And you're thinking, well, you've got a cash register there that'll do it all for you, surely. And he was so slow, Hot Potters, and I felt sorry for him because obviously, because he's been used to the cashless society, his mathematics has dumbed down. You can't do it anymore. Like anything else, the less you do of something, the worse you go at it. So that's a side effect of the cashless society. It's not as prevalent over in the UK as yet, but the more we go down it, and I must admit I'm guilty of doing it, Hot Potters. You know, I go to fill up the old jalopy, rather than going into the little kiosk, I'll just go on to, you know, pay at the pump, and away you go, because it's so easy. And it was sort of instilled in us. It was even those that was dragging the feet during the pandemic and didn't want to go down the cashless society, because we was told it was more, you know, it was more sanitary. We did it, didn't we? And then you get used to something, you think, oh, it's easy this. But there are side effects to not using cash. Cash is king, Hot Potters, I believe that. Mainly because as long as you've got money in your pocket, you can go anywhere. If you go up to a cash register and you whip your card out and it gets declined, you're screwed. And you also have the rather embarrassing thing of having to leave your goods there and walk out because your card's been declined and everybody's saying, it's him there, he got no money. So, yeah, I'm going to try and stick with cash, I think, more. And what's your thoughts on the cashless society? You know, is it something you partake in? Is it something you would welcome? Or are you like me, you believe cash is king? I was brought up in an era, Hot Potters, where you didn't go into debt for anything. You know, my mother and father instilled in me that if you couldn't afford to pay for something, it stayed where it was. And my dad even went one step further. He always said, once I've bought something, I can take it outside and smash it up if I want. If you're paying for it on ticket, it's not yours. And that's what he tried to instill in me, and it's something I'm going to instill in little Toby James. But yeah, cashless society, yay or nay. Anyway, Hot Potters, slowly coming up to the 10-minute mark. So I'm going to wrap this one up and get back to the hotel room and meet up with Mrs H and little Toby James. And we'll get off for the jollifications of day 10. If anybody out there is wondering what that noise is in the background, you'll hear it, it's like a high-pitched whine. It's the crickets here, that's how loud they are. I'll just stop rabbiting for a minute and you can enjoy the sounds that you get in the early morning. I always know when I'm in Florida when I hear that sound. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. So one last swig of the beverage before I fill it up. And it is from Mr H, as always. Until tomorrow, bye-bye for now.